Okay. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Davis, and I have a lovely neighbor. So I'm going to be talking about art therapy. And first of all, you might think, I don't know how to draw. I haven't done art since I was a child or since play school. So art therapy is very different from art product. It's not about aesthetic art making, or you don't have to have any art experience. Everybody's creative. We've all got a left and a right brain. We've just got different ways of going about creativity. So in art therapy, it's just about expressing oneself out of using art materials or recycled material or clay or sand. It's using absolutely any art materials to express oneself, to explore thoughts and feelings. And it's in a safe and non-judgmental way. So often we struggle to express ourselves. We don't have words. We have a limited amount of words. Words mean so many different things. We don't have access to words, but that's where art really comes in handy, because it's about being creative, and art becomes the bridge between the mind and the body. It helps us get out of our head and into our body. And yeah, everyone can do art. There's no right or wrong art. There's no good or bad. Actually, the messier the art is, it often means that the person's then really letting go and starting to play. So it's recreating whatever's in a person's mind is going to come out through the art. So it's a very powerful tool in supporting people on their journeys. And if it's a journey of recovery, it's a very safe way. It's nonverbal and safe and creative way to explore emotions, to build self-awareness and self-esteem, and develop new coping strategies, better, healthier coping strategies. So I'm going to talk about all the different areas that it can help, some of the areas. So I mentioned expressing emotions safely. So often we have a problem, or we find it difficult to identify or know what we're feeling. It's hard to know. Sometimes there's a feeling of numbness or feeling stuck, or just being angry or sad, and that's like a cover feeling for a whole lot of other feelings. Maybe alcohol was used as a means of not feeling or avoiding feeling, or just being distracted from feelings and from being in the world. So art therapy is a very safe and healthy way to express and release and explore different feelings, like anger or sadness or guilt or shame, grief, whatever it is. Emotions that are often suppressed or repressed and numbed through alcohol and through food, through eating, through anything. When we express an emotion or use art materials to express emotions, first of all, a lot of the materials actually take on the emotions. What I mean by that is we release emotions by the doing. Because when we get out of our heads and into our body by doing art and being creative, then that in itself is a partial release. And then we have an opportunity to think about it and talk about it and think, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And sometimes it's much easier actually to talk about an art image or a piece of clay or a vision board than talking about the self. Because when we talk about ourself, we can get a bit scared by that. So when we talk about the art image, it feels a little bit separate. We're talking about the picture, so we feel a little bit removed from it, but it's as beneficial as, or even more in a way, than talking about the self, because we get so many insights and so many exciting discoveries through the art medium that we wouldn't otherwise have access to just through our cognitive thinking. We get really interesting symbols will come up, and patterns and ways of being in the world, and culture and tradition and values and rules and beliefs, everything that we've carried from childhood. These have an opportunity to come out because it comes out through the unconscious. But it doesn't have to be so scary. It can also be on a really basic level, just building insights and awareness, because it encourages reflections. So we think about things in a new way. It might be thinking about symbols or colors or shapes or subjects in the art, or just ways of being in the world, roles that we've played in our lives. So this gives a lot of insights into coping mechanisms, into strengths and weaknesses, and of course, triggers. And when we become aware of these triggers and more conscious about these triggers, then it's an opportunity for us to make new choices, healthier choices, more useful choices. And once we understand why, we can also be able to be more mindful and make these choices. And then healthy coping mechanisms. So when we create art, it lowers the stress, regulates emotions, and it serves as a really healthy outlet, like a healthy way of working with a craving or an anxiety or difficult feelings, depression. And so it's a really healthy way of managing stress and managing anxiety and working with depression. The worst thing, if a person's depressed, the worst thing they can do is be still and not do anything. If we turning to art materials and even just scribbling like black crayon on a piece of paper, that's getting out of our head and into our body and actually activating something in a somatic way to start to get things moving. So what else? Once we start to learn new positive coping mechanisms, then it can help also prevent relapse by having these healthy ways of focusing. A fun thing I would do with clients, for example, would be working with different feelings or different emotions or cravings and creating, like using something very non-directive or something quite flowy, maybe like watercolors or inks, where shapes will run into each other and turn into creatures or monsters. And then we can actually name these creatures and monsters. So it's something outside of ourselves that we can look at in a very different way, get new perspectives, start to see things about it that we can look at or confront or even start to tame. So once we see things on the external, then once it's more visible, then it becomes more externalized and we can start to observe rather than be controlled by feelings and controlled by behaviors. So art therapy also, again, it really helps with the depression that sometimes hits in early sobriety, and creating art releases dopamine. This chemicals, it's whenever there's pleasure, dopamine is released. It makes us feel happier, and it also boosts self-esteem. And then there's a sense of accomplishment where you feel like you've done something or completed something. There's that sense of accomplishment. And so it makes you feel good, increases concentration and drive. And of course, serotonin also. Once we start to relax the nervous system, it starts to release serotonin, and creating art releases serotonin. And that helps us, it changes a person's outlook on life and how we experience the world. So through that new release of serotonin, we can start to create new neural pathways and new ways of thinking and being in the world. If people have experienced any trauma, often there've been some kind of challenges, maybe some trauma in the past, and which is really difficult to talk about, and maybe we don't want to talk about. But art therapy is really helpful in processing difficult memories or relationship patterns or experiences that have happened without having to be re-traumatized by putting it into words or telling the story in words. So again, it's getting out of the head into the body, working through experiences on a more of an unconscious level, on a physiological level. So sometimes people might want to create a timeline of their journey of recovery and document it, of different steps and milestones. And that can be really interesting. And there's a real sense of empowerment once you see it out on the paper, separate from the self, and can see it from a different point of view, a different perspective, and then share it with someone or share it with other people. And to be able to acknowledge how far you've come and what the journey's been about and what you've been through. It also helps the person stay motivated. It also helps the person's just progress. Also, communication is a huge one. We all struggle to communicate sometimes, and art therapy and symbols, creativity and symbols have been there since the beginning of time. Prehistorically, cavemen used to draw symbols on cave walls, and that was their messages and way of communicating to other people. So through art, there's a sense of we accessing ways of communicating. It also helps with connecting to ourselves. Often we've lost connection. So it's a way of connecting to ourselves as well as connecting to other people and gaining a sense of empathy and understanding of what other people have been through. Once we tell our stories, there's a lot more compassion and empathy for other people and where they've been through, what they've been through, where they've been. And sometimes the objects or symbols that come up in the creative process, you learn so much more about someone than you just learn if a person were to just cognitively and verbally talk about something that we know. So when there's also a group, like sharing in a group process, that helps with sharing with like-minded people and helping people communicate the experience. So people will feel seen and supportive, and it builds a sense of community. And very often, community is what we're lacking, especially community in the new world, in the new ways of being, and with like-minded people, because that will reduce feelings of isolation. It will reduce feelings of loneliness, or feeling like an outsider, feeling different. Art helps people collaborate and get together and communicate in ways that fosters sharing and building of community and a sense of belonging. A sense of belonging is really important. Belonging in a new way, in a new world, with healthy ways of being in the world. So the sense of belonging and reconnecting with self and reconnecting with other people and finding your new tribe and fostering relationships in the new tribe, it helps people to find their identity again, because often identities have been lost and values have been lost. And it's like recreating, who am I in the world and what do I want and what are my passions? And so through the creative process, it bypasses the known and the cognitive functioning again. And it helps people to really rediscover, who are you at this stage of your life, at this age of your life, and be able to reflect on your needs and values and your strengths and hopes, and find inspiration again. So it's like going from surviving in the world and making a choice of living instead of just getting by and surviving, but actually living. And in order to do that, you need some direction and inspiration. And so this is where a vision board will come in. Vision board's really helpful. So it's a way of finding one's new blueprint of being alive in the world, and from moving from surviving to being alive and living. So a vision board is a way of helping people rediscover, what do you want out of your life? What do you want out of your life, your work, your relationships, hobbies? It forces you to feel into, what does it look like? What would it feel like? Using your senses. What would it taste like? Or who would it be with? Can you show some of your art? I'll get there, Denise. And in a vision board, it helps you to put these goals out on paper. So it's like setting an intention and putting these goals out on paper in creative ways, with pictures. So it's an opportunity again to find, like, what is meaningful? What will make you excited to wake up in the morning? So all different areas, could be in a physical level, on a mental level, an emotional level, a spiritual level, culturally, recreationally. And what really goes well with this, which I use and work with a lot in vision board workshops, is gratitude. Gratitude, big side. When, we can either think of our cup half empty or half full. And gratitude and accessing gratitude and play with gratitude in a creative way, an opportunity for people to become more grateful and start to, when we start thinking and feeling gratitude, our whole energy changes. The world just seems like a much more manageable place, and we feel like our cup is half full rather than half empty. So we work with this in the vision board in terms of finding pictures of areas in all different categories of how do we want life to look? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Finding pictures and photos and also words to represent all these different areas in your life. So we'd create a collage incorporating all these different spheres and areas. And envisaging this healthy life is an opportunity to make new choices and to set out intentions and get direction through the art making process, through the creative process. So a vision board is like a visual representation or a collage of goals and ideas and hopes and dreams. It's important to have hopes and dreams again of the future and the present. What do you want to manifest? Is it personally related, relationships, maybe work related? So developing a personal and professional vision board actively puts the laws of attraction in practice. Again, no art experience is needed. There's no right or wrong, no good or bad. So can you actually dare to visualize goals and imagine a life free of addiction. What would it look like? What would it feel like? Who would be in your life? What would be in your life? So in a summary, art therapy is about expressing thoughts and feelings in a safe and non-judgmental, non-intrusive way. And creating a vision board helps visualize goals and imagine a life free of addiction and full of new, exciting things and experiences and people that you feel more passionate about and feel really positive about. I can see there's a new message. Ah, that one. Okay, some of my art. You can see a picture behind me. That was a fun picture. That was around playing. So an aspect of art therapy is we don't really focus so much on the end product, although the end product is useful in working with and reflecting on, but it's more about the process. So I had an adult male client who came for an art therapy session, and he chose some clay, and he took his ball of clay and he first turned it into, so he was playing with it, and then suddenly it looked like an elephant. So we started talking about elephants and what they could mean, and the matriarchs in his life, which of course was his mom. And then the picture turned into some food, and we spoke about his relationship with food. And then it went into a snail, and it was about what areas have been slow in his life. And then it turned into something else. And at the end of the session, he just had a lump of clay. So there was nothing to show for it. He had nothing to take home and say, wow, look what I made in art therapy. But he'd been through a really interesting process. And that was really powerful for him and empowering. So I think I'll stop there, and I'll see if anyone has got questions, and we can go from
Okay,
there.
Sam, I'm going to stop recording.